Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Today's live episode, Ask Me Almost Anything, a free-for-all of questions. My name is Glenn Gers. I am the Chief Operating Everything at Writing for Screens, a channel that I have created in order to take the skills and the tools and the insights that I had to figure out for myself in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies, trying to leave those behind for you as I am on my way out of the business. In order to do that, I have created here on this channel a set of playlists. If you look down, this is a little screen grab of my channel main page. And if you scroll down there, you'll see some bright colored thumbnails. Here's a close-up of these first three playlists. Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and the Process, Being a Writer. These three playlists comprise about 50 10-ish minute videos. They are what I call the video lessons. It's about 10 minutes each on a specific topic. The topic is in the title and it is in the thumbnail. You can't miss it. Nice, big, bright, colorful letters to tell you what it's about. Genre, flashbacks, dialogue, character. I tried to get this into sort of a how-to, handy, useful thing that you can try for yourself. Just some ideas, some approaches, some things to do that you can do to see if they work for you. Because here's the secret. There are no rules. There is no right or wrong. There is no formula. There is no plan. Every artist must figure out their own goals, their own style, their own way of working. That is the secret. So that doesn't mean you have to do it all alone. That is why I am here. I have tried to take some things, stuff I've figured out, things I've heard from others, put them out there in nice, sort of easy recipe-like ways, you know, sort of like try this, try that, without a system, without you having to do one part to do the other part, just stuff for you to think about. If you are doing great, if you are writing stuff that you want to write and you're feeling good about it and you're able to do what you like, go do that. Don't bother looking around for anything else. But if you are stuck, if you are lost, if you are lacking confidence, I did a whole thing about confidence, that's when I might be able to give you some things to try. You have to make your own path. You have to decide your own thing. Writing art is making choices. There is not a right answer waiting out there for you. You have to make a choice. See what it does for you. Live with your choices. That is the secret to being creative. So when I finished with these 50 lessons, they took a couple of years, honestly. Then I thought, well, let me do some live streams. So every Wednesday, if I can make it at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone, that is the time zone that it's 1 p.m. I am here live. I take on a different topic every week. This week, free for all, open. Anybody's questions, go ahead and ask. In the meantime, I'm going to say a bunch of hellos. Hello, Pelicans and Nishaj. Jean from Ward number 6, writing for 10 days in a row. You got me beat. That is great. Congratulations, Jean. All right. Trivikram. I hope I've pronounced that right. Question, how have screenplay writing styles, conventions, and industry standards changed over the past decade? That is a fascinating question. Let's see. I would say, well, writing styles. Writing style is a tricky thing because the actual stylistic words on a page, the writing style of scripts, hasn't changed that much. There have been a couple of scripts that have tried some fancy things like changing font size and stuff. It's fine. It's not a big deal. The standard screenwriting format and style has been fairly consistent for the past couple of decades. But I think what you might be talking about more are the content, the ways that stories are told, the approaches to character. And that has changed because what's been happening is over the years, as the audience and the filmmakers become more sophisticated, and the possibilities become wider as different filmmaking cultures come into conflict and come into to introduction to each other. I think that we've gotten a lot less accessible, actually, to the standard audience. There's a lot of things that are unspoken. Many things are purely visual. Many things are implied or put into the edit or into what you might call subtext. That has all become more acceptable. In the 90s, independent film was breaking down a lot of barriers from the 60s through the 90s. A lot of new influences coming from European cinema, Japanese cinema, had opened up possibilities. Before that, the studio system in Hollywood was very stage bound. It was very everyone was writing basically very, very clear and obvious scripts. That is less true. Styles and conventions. I think the main thing that has happened in the past 5 years, especially, is that the rules have all broken down. There is still a part of the industry or a part of the filmmaking world that relies on an old-fashioned sense of the 3-act structure, of the character must change, of a character must learn a lesson, of you must state the theme and the goal in the first 15 pages. Those conventions, which are often taught in screenwriting classes and books, have broken down a lot, because there are now a lot of different niches, a lot of different voices that are available, but also because movie structure had to open up to the possibilities of series structure. Movies are no longer, I would suggest, the central screen entertainment of our industry. Honestly, series are more interest to the industry. The industry has a certain focus on tentpole movies at the moment, but those have started to fade as the comic book and fantasy genres are starting to fall apart. And the truth is, what I understand from people I know in the industry, I'm retired, but the people I know are saying nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows. Many, many different styles have become available. There is a sort of dinosaur fading industry of very standard storytelling, but genuinely it's falling apart. The truth is, the standard movie is now not that interesting to a production company. A series is far more financially exciting to them. And series rules are all over the place. You can have 6 episodes. You can have 68 episodes. You can have half-hour episodes. You can have half-hour dramas. You can have hour-long comedies. All these things have started to break apart. So I guess my big message would be, we are in a time of change, is one way to put it. Chaos is another way to put it. And therefore, the main thing I would personally advise, find what you like. Find what you would, honestly, I always believe you should write what you would be happy to have written, even if everybody in the world hates it. If it goes nowhere, if it totally fails, you have to feel like it was worth doing. That was it. Because what's going to happen is, the way that things get made is that someone is very good, someone works very hard, and then someone gets very lucky, because you can be the hardest, most talented, most hard-working writer in the world, and if you don't get in front of the person who can write the check and put the project into production, who happens to want the thing that you have done, you're out of luck. There's nothing you can do. On the other side of it, no matter what you do, if you happen to have written the thing that someone is looking for, or something that clicks with them that they didn't even know they were looking for, then you will be successful. That is, honest to gosh, the only thing I can think of as a path to success. So that's my main answer would be, because things are so chaotic and changing so quickly, there is no particular genre that is going to have a 2 or 3 year run as a big hit thing. There's a whole lot of changes every couple of months. The new flavor of the month is happening and then ending. So therefore, my advice is do what you really love, what you feel passionate about, what you feel you're good at, and then get it out there as much as possible over as long a time as possible, and keep doing that, because then you're just trying to get lucky. I did write about that. I did a video. I will post a link to it after this is done down in the description here. This is it says basically the same thing, but in more detail, talks a little bit more about the history. There's a video I did called Career Advice in a Time of Chaos or a Time of Change. I can't remember the title. Anyway, so that I hope is a helpful start. That's my first answer. Rich Girl Brand, you are entirely welcome. Honestly, I'm not saying it to make anybody happy. I'm saying it because I was an aspiring writer for 18 years before I started to make a living. And then I worked for another 25 years. So that's a lot of years. And in those years, the only thing that I could find that was true was that all the people saying, this is the system, this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way to do it, there were just so many pieces of evidence that was going against those rules that I had to say, rules are interesting, rules are useful, but they are not absolute, and you should not feel compelled to do whatever it is that they are saying if you have a strong passion for, talent for, or belief in something else. There's always consequences. If you are going to do a very, very small 3-person story, the odds are that a big studio is not going to pick that up, because that's just a realistic choice. They can't make a lot of money on that. But within knowing your choices, I would say here, I did a video on this too called Screenwriting Rules. I will put a link, but please do take a look at that. You are very welcome, Rich Girl Brand. Hang in there, do your thing, do what you believe in, keep doing it, do what you believe in, and get good at it. You can't just do what you believe in, you have to keep working at it. That 10,000 hours thing that Malcolm Gladwell first publicized in a book called Outliers, 10,000 hours, no kidding. That's what you have to put in. You have to write a lot of scripts and keep putting them out there. Hello, Doreen. And yes, congratulations to Jean and her full ward. Hello, bearded screenwriter in Canada. My best wishes here from America, despite our governmental clashes. I am glad to see you here. Thank you. Can you ever lose screen credit after your screenplay is sold? Absolutely. I have. Yes, credit is determined by the Writers Guild of America. By the way, what I say is always about the American Hollywood film industry. That's what I have my knowledge about. In the American industry, credit is determined by the Writers Guild, our union. They did this in order to keep the studios and the producers from using credit as a weapon. Back in the studio days before the union, a producer would either steal credit and get it for himself, or use it as a weapon to say, like, if you don't do what I want, you will lose your credit, etc. So the union said, we determine the credit. Unfortunately, for a long time, the credit was the desire of the union was to make it appear that writing a script was an authorial event with one author. So it was very hard when you had something with 8 or 9 people who had written different drafts to get your credit. Even if you contributed, they would decide one person, they would say that person did most of it, sometimes 2. The truth is many studio scripts have 5 or more writers. Now, just recently, they have decided that if you work on the script at all, if at any time during the process you are hired to work on this script, your name will go in the credits, you will simply not get the money attached to credit, because credits are how it is decided who will get what are called residuals. Residuals is payments that are a slice of the profits, the income that the project makes. Residuals can be nice. And the way that they were determined is whoever got the credit got the residuals. Now you can get credit without the residuals, so as not to water that down. But the answer is yes. After a project is finished filming and is done, it is submitted to the Writers Guild with all the different drafts of all the writers who worked on it, and the producers suggest who they want to have credit, who they believe deserves it. But then the Writers Guild will read through all the drafts. They get a team of writers to volunteer to read through all the drafts and say who contributed the most, and that person gets the credit. So very often you can work on something for years, have someone come along and rewrite your script, and your credit is gone. So that is the answer to that. Is there such a thing as too many time jumps in a script? For example, story starts in the 1980s, fast forward several years, and then the bulk of the story takes place in the 2000s. Well, that's really only one time jump, so I would say no. Many stories, time jumps all over the place. Memento, which has backward time jumps, probably has 7 or 8. I believe that if anyone says you can't, this is the maximum number of time jumps you can have, someone would write a script with more than that just to prove that you can do more. There's a movie called Edge of Tomorrow, which has time loops. So there's time jumps. There's got to be 12 of them. Time jumps are all over the place, and they can happen a lot. There is no rule. The rule is, can you keep an audience's interest considering that you are jumping around in time? If you can make your story clear or the puzzle interesting enough, sky's the limit. You probably need to have fewer than 100, but I don't know. The answer is, as far as I can tell, there is no absolute limit to time jumps. Some people will be confused by 2. Some people love 10. It depends on the story and the structure. There's a movie called Daniel, which is based on a book called The Book of Daniel by E.L. Doctorow. The movie's directed by Sidney Lumet. It has a lot. It has like at least 10 time jumps. Good stories, especially if you have 2 layers of story. You have a present time and then the lives of the people in the past. They can go back and forth a lot. There certainly is. I mean, there's no scientific method by which we can test the strain that an audience is under with time jumps. The answer is, if you can make it work, then you can do as much as you want. Mind says, I've been trying to write for almost 5 years now. I want to write great stories, but I just can't start. I've written short films, but it's really hard to start writing. I just can't start whatever I do. Mind, I beg you to look at my videos. This is exactly what I like to talk about. Let's talk about some of the things that I can suggest for you. First, let me talk about small steps. That's a video I made. That when I put up these cards, it's because it's a video I made. Please look on my main page. You will find these videos. Another thing would be create a ritual. That's another good one. And especially fear of writing, because I had a years of struggle where I was trying to write something. I could start stuff. I couldn't get anywhere with it, and I couldn't finish it, certainly. And I got to a point, as I tell in that fear of writing video, where I got to the point where I was frozen with inability to make a decision about the first line of a play I was writing when I was in college. And the first line was simply, "Do you want some wine?" And I became paralyzed trying to decide, should it be "want some wine?" Do you want some wine? Would you like some wine? I mean, these are minor differences. And the honest answer is, it doesn't matter. Put something down and keep moving. If you can get into the practice of putting something down, even if you think it is bad, even if you know it is bad, that will allow the process. But please, I can only beg you to look through the videos on my channel. Almost all of them, in one way or another, deal with your question mind, which is, how do you write? How do you do this thing which is so complicated and which you have no certainty of? It is bad. It is frightening. It is all these things, but you can do it. I also did one called Getting Stuck or Lost. Please look at that. There's so much on my channel. I honestly, I have to say, I am beginning to feel that I have hit the end of the value of this channel beyond those videos. It's all there. Anything I can tell you now is said better in the short videos. There's nice big colored words on the screen to tell you things that I'm saying, to emphasize them. They're really stripped down to beautiful, useful things. I beg you to look at Instinct. This is another one. Instinct, please, mind, check this out. All I can say is there are 50 videos. There's 10 minutes each. Take them in small pieces. I believe they will help you. I truly, truly do. But I'm happy that you are here and asking the question. And the answer is, the most important thing to do when you have ideas is to learn the habit of putting it down on paper. Even if what you're writing is, I want to write a great story, write that down. Get into the habit of, because then you can say, well, what makes a great story, or what is this story great with? By the way, just want to add something. You want to write great stories, but you just can't start. If you just can't start with, I just want to write stories. I don't even care if they're great. They will get as great as they're going to get as you work. But adding that layer of judgment and pressure and competition is not helping you. No one knows if they are great. Even the greats can write less great stuff. Great is simply a complicated problem that we cannot control. So therefore, what you really want to do is just write because you like to, because you want to, and see how it goes. And whatever you do, I guarantee you the next one, you're going to be like, wow, I need to do something better. I need to do something different. Even if you write what you consider your best work. I mean, after 30 years or so, I got to where my scripts were, I felt they were good. I was like, damn, that's as good as I can do. That's a good script. Other people would say, that's a really good script. We're not going to make it. We're not going to pay for it, but it's really good. Can we hire you to do something else? And even then I would say, well, what's the next one going to be that's going to be a new challenge? How am I going to get better if I'm already as good as I can get? And the answer would be trying a different thing within this skill. Anyway, that's my main thoughts. Hello, Donna. You are very welcome, Trivikram. Very, very glad that you're here. Hello, Madco. Subtlety is often praised as a strength of storytelling, but what crosses the line into too subtle? Is it okay to suspend the audience in a state of confusion if the purpose is clarified soon after? That's an interesting question, because the answer is there are no rules. According to some producers and companies and critics, yes, clarity is vital. There was a long period from the 1930s up through the 2010s when the rule was simply, you must be clear. It was more important to be clear than to be entertaining. It was more important to be clear than to be smart. Lately, that has really fallen apart, because the fact is, much art is never clear. The truth is, clarity is not an absolute value of creative work. Some stories are not clear and they're open to interpretation. Even Inception, which is a pretty Hollywood project, a pretty big, clear project, it depends upon your interpretation. It requires you to decide whether you believe someone is telling the truth or not. There is absolutely no requirement that art be clear. Some of my favorite art of the recent days, All of Us Strangers, a gorgeous piece of independent filmmaking from England called All of Us Strangers. It's not clear. I mean, by the end, I think you can interpret it pretty clearly, but it never ever states anything clearly. It shows you some things and you have to put them together, but it's powerful, it's beautiful, it's marvelous. Subtlety is in the eye of the beholder as far as whether or not you should go all the way with it. I don't know. The answer is you have to make your choice and then live with the consequences. If you want to do really, really subtle work, and you also want to write for, comic book movie companies, you're probably going to have a problem because their subtlety range is small. You want to do an art film, you probably can do very, very subtle things. Everything is a choice, and every choice has a price. You can choose to be more or less subtle, to be more or less on the nose, which, by the way, I love. I love both. But the main thing is, by making that choice, if you are extremely clear, you are actually going to turn off the more artsy members of the audience. Are going to be bored. If you choose to be more indirect or unspoken, you're going to lose some of the people who are just going to movies to see explosions and know a good guy from a bad guy. That is your choice. And what you need to do is be aware that it is a choice. There is no right or wrong answer in creative work. The answer is, which choice are you making, and are you aware that you are making the choice and what the cost of that choice is, which you should be perfectly willing to pay, because that is the way it is. You can't do everything. You can't write a Sex Pistols song and a Beethoven symphony at the same time. They are going to be different. They pull against each other. They are, in fact, attacks on each other in certain ways. Anyway, the point is, you got to do what you believe is natural to you and what you believe you want to put out there. As I've said, do the thing that you can be happy that you did, even if everyone hates it. All right. Bastian, hi. If I could ask you anything, it would be, can you talk about how you created your YouTube channel? Did you? Okay, I will briefly do this. This is not my area of specialty, but I will talk about these things. Let's see. First, did I outline my videos? Yes. Here's what happened. For many, many, many years, I was thinking about writing a book of screenwriting, how to screenwrite. There were so many of them, but they weren't saying what I believed. The things that I thought were true weren't usually being said as a consistent voice. So I said, I have something to say. I have experience. I have knowledge. And I started to try and outline a book. Excuse me. And then I thought, there's just too many books on this subject. There's too many. I don't feel like I can legitimately reach people the way that YouTube seemed to be reaching people. And I thought there's probably a lot of people who would rather have their lessons made into little videos, little 10-minute videos. So what I started to do was break my book down into little sections, each with a topic. That became my channel's main selections. Those 50 videos are the sections. And each one I would write the script for. I would outline, I would take all the material I had on that topic, like dialogue, and I would start to write it in a way that I could speak out loud, which is very different from writing it to be read. And it felt liberating because I'm very tired of screenwriting books that are these big chunks of text. For me, I want something that's very nuts and bolts, very, like I said, like a recipe, like an index card, like a how-to manual. So I said, let me do a how-to manual on these things that are so creative. And I started to work on the videos, and that took like a year. Yes, it's a lot of work. I watched a lot of videos. I watched a lot of how to make videos, which is honestly the main business of YouTube, is making videos about how to make videos. I discovered that there were certain things I liked in the way that people presented themselves. I didn't want to be too professional. I wanted to be somewhat accessible and available and believable. And sometimes when things are super polished, when they're very influencer-y, I tune out. I don't believe. So I also, it's just hard. It's really hard to get that quality of lighting and that quality of sound and that makeup. I considered, do I want to wear makeup? Do I want to? I thought, you know what? I just can't do it. So what I decided to do was do the best I could. The other thing I learned is that I cannot speak into a camera when it's recording and remember a large chunk of text. I can remember 2 or 3 sentences at the most. So I broke everything into 2 or 3 sentence sections, and then I would stand up the camera and I would talk to it and recite this bit as authentically as I could. You have to practice. You have to do things in order to get good at them. It doesn't matter what that is. So for me, learning to talk to the camera, learning to look into the lens, like right now I am looking into a lens, and I had to get used to just talk into the lens. And I did it. I would do like 4 or 5 takes of each set of sentences. I would say, when you write a thing, do a thing. When you write a thing, do a thing. And then I would take that recording, I would cut it up into little snippets. I would decide which of the 5 or 6 or 9 that I had done was the best. I wasn't going to re-record it, so whichever one was, and then I just cut them together and made my videos. I had a sense that I wanted graphics up there, like these, boom, big, colorful words. That was part of my my concept, was that there were going to be like index cards, like posters that you could just say, here, this is helpful. So I sort of decided to make my choices. Once again, I'm really, really not kidding when I say everything is a choice and every choice has a price. And I said, am I going to use makeup and do fancy like lighting with backlighting? And then I thought, I don't have room. I don't have room for that setup. So I'm not going to do that. I just picked parts of my office to stand in front of, and I hit myself with as much light as I could manage. And the main thing is any kind of work, and this includes also Mind's question about how do you start? The answer is you do it repeatedly until you become comfortable with your form, with your format, with your reality. The truth is I had to get used to the fact that I am what I am. I'm going to talk the way I talk. I'm hoping that people like it, but I wasn't sure. But I couldn't be anything other. I really just couldn't do it. So the answer is imagine walking or talking. These are 2 things that people learn in their first 2 or 3 years of life that are really actually very hard to do. It is actually very hard to learn to talk. And you do it by listening to others and imitating them and practicing. You try saying words when you're a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old. You say words and then they go, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And then you get to say the words over and over. And you do it badly, and when you're trying to walk, you fall a great deal of the time. But you begin to learn what muscles move to get your leg in front of you so you don't fall down. Once you've done that enough times, it becomes comfortable. It becomes habitual. That is what you have to do with writing. You have to say, I'm going to learn to sit down, open a document, and write down words. I'm going to write sentences, whether or not they are good sentences or bad. And just like with babies, when they start talking, they only say a word or 2. They try and put them together. If all you can do is write 1 sentence, but every day you write a new sentence of that paragraph, eventually you're going to get it to where you can write a paragraph at a time and then a page. Honestly, that may be it. There are days when that's all I write. But if you keep doing it, you begin to get fluent. You begin to get comfortable. You begin to get good at doing that thing. And then you can work on the actual contents. Can't work on the contents until you are used to doing the thing. All right. How did I learn to speak in front of a camera? Um, I would say the main thing, first of all, practice. Second of all, you have to just learn to say, I'm not going to judge this. I honestly don't like looking at it. Editing is just a process of, well, I have 5 takes. One of them is going to work. I'm not going to think about how I said that word or what my face looked like. I'm just going to cut them together. And the other thing is, I truly believe, especially with writing, but even with performing and making videos, the key is to love the content, the thing you are talking about, so much that you are willing to humiliate yourself out of that passion. You are willing to risk. You are willing to commit because you love the thing. I love writing and talking about writing. I really like it. That's why I am doing this. So the answer is, don't do something because you think people are going to like it. Do it because you love it so much that even if nobody likes it, for the first year of my channel, I had 36 subscribers. A year, maybe even longer. Then I began to push myself a little, and I got very lucky in that one of the things I pushed was an interview with a channel which had much more attention called Film Courage. And I went and talked to them. I said, can I talk to you? I'm doing this channel. And they said, sure. They've got a lot of people talking to them. They're like, why not? My video blew up on Film Courage. It is well seen. One of the, they interview you for about an hour or two, and then they cut into little 10-minute sections. One of mine blew up, and all of a sudden I had people watching me. That is how I did it, Bastian. I hope that helps. I got to scroll down. Got a lot of comments here. Hello, Michael Lightfoot. I'm looking to produce my screenplay as a graphic novel. Cool. Have you, as I've written and drawn, any thoughts on the medium? The thoughts I have on the medium is I wish I was younger because I love graphic novels, and I truly believe that is a brilliant way to take control of the visual, verbal, narrative medium. If you have some skills or interest in pursuing that, practicing it, do it. Because in theory, you can do it by yourself, which is very hard to do as a filmmaker. It's also relatively cost-effective, although very, very time-consuming. If you don't know Scott McCloud's 3 books, Understanding Comics, Making Comics, Reinventing Comics, Scott McCloud. Excuse me, I highly recommend. My answer is I envy you. My thoughts on the medium are I kind of wish that I was young enough to learn to master the graphic arts programs that would be needed in order to create my own graphic novels. I would do it in a minute. There is a novel that I am planning. I don't know if I'll get to do it, but it would be a mix of written novel and graphic novel. We'll see. But the answer is do it. If you can do it, do it. I love that idea. I think that is great. Hello, Lake Filter. You are welcome, Mr. Screenwriter, and your beard. Do script competitions favor low-budget stories, especially if the judges deal with independent films? That would depend upon the particular competition. I do not know much about competitions because I have never entered one, and I do not track them because I'm not gonna enter one, and because I'm trying to do my own work and not spend too much time teaching. So the answer is I don't know. It's very possible that some do, but my guess is not. Mostly my guess is that screenwriting competitions are steering towards Hollywood, towards the big budget, towards the studios, towards series, and therefore they would have that more in mind. In fact, very often, I used to run into this a lot. Producers would say, we can't afford to do low budget. In other words, because of the overhead and because of the fact that the competition is so severe, companies in Hollywood need big budgets. First of all, their fees come out of the budget. Second of all, it is very, very unlikely that a low budget film is going to make $100 million or $500 million. And unfortunately, in the game that they are in, that is the goal. It is a stupid goal. The goal should be profit. And that if you make a, $6 million movie like Anora and you win Best Picture, they'll probably make, I don't know what they've made. I think about 60 million or something. Anyway, the point is, weirdly, for the big Hollywood companies, making a profit of 30 or 40 million is too small. And so they won't invest in that. All right. Michael says, P.S. Your advice is always really sound and much appreciated. Thank you. It's a great counterpoint to the insistent and slightly hectoring tone that you find in all the books. Yeah, I agree. I am actually trying to make a book out of what I have done here. I am working on it. I may try and compile my scripts into a book that does not change the tone, that works in that same brief and casual tone. I may try and do that. I may self-publish that this year. We will see. Lake Filter has 2 questions. Hints on not being distracted by other parts of a story while working. Second, just finished a writing session. Do I have to write something after this stream? No, go write something could be tomorrow. When I say go write something, I mean in general. You don't have to actually immediately write something. As far as not being distracted by working on other parts of the story, my main advice would be always, when you are writing anything, really try to be in the moment of that scene. And that's really, really important. I urge you to watch Think in Scenes, the video that I made on this topic, which talks about, but also honestly, the one I did about fear of writing. Because they both talk about the absolute necessity, as far as I can tell, to be narrow, to be specific, to say, I'm just going to work on one moment at a time, one scene, one encounter, one character, one place, one thing. I often quote Sidney Lumet's famous description of filmmaking in his book On Movies, maybe On Making Movies. Anyway, Sidney Lumet, great director, wrote a book. And he talks about how a movie is essentially made of as like a mosaic. In other words, a mosaic is made of little tiny pieces of stone, and each stone is its own color, shape, size. Each one has its own qualities. Put together, they are the work. But the way that you get there is not by making the work. You do it by making the piece. As David Mamet put it in his book on directing, a nail doesn't have to be a house. It has to be a nail. In other words, if you are building a house or you're building a script, you are building it out of many different parts. Each part has to do its own job. So therefore, what you want to do is get into the habit of feeling the moment, of imagining just the circumstance of the moment, not being out there thinking, oh, this is going to matter to that, but to say, what is it like for these characters in this place and time and relationship with whoever they are talking to? That's the key. Okay. Hi, Blaine. And Robert. Robert Freeman says, is there still a market for a badass Western movie? As far as I can tell, sure. There's a lot of markets for a lot of things. It's so hard to say, but there have been a few. There was a couple of Netflix Westerns. Yeah, there certainly is you're not gonna likely get a big Hollywood release, but you never know, depending on the stars and the producers and the company and the gimmick, because there's got to be some form of hook to make it stand out. Certainly possible. Once again, the thing about the market, the thing about any kind of trying to figure out what you should write because of what they're making, it's going to change. It's going to change every 3 months, every 2 months now. And also different companies will have very different goals. So for instance, some of them just want standard IP that already exists. So they would pay, $1 billion for Tolkien, but they won't pay necessarily for an original's work. I don't know. Why is Disney and Marvel making worse and worse movies? I don't know that they are. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It will depend on a lot of things. I just watched the first 2 episodes of the new Marvel Daredevil series. It's great. So I don't know. Have you watched The Monkey? Not yet. I am really looking forward to it. Um, that is high on my list. Is it possible to sell an art film screenplay? Once again, it's certainly possible. It's possible that if you do sell it, it won't be for very much because the people who are making an art film, in fact, probably the way it would work with if you write something that's very artsy, indie, small, um, if it's not going to be like a artsy indie horror film or something, you're probably going to have to find a company that says, listen, we'll pay you $100 option. Let us hold on to it. Let us take this script, try to package a director, financing, stars, try and put it together. If that comes together, you'll get paid out of the budget. But for the meantime, we're all working together. You will let us work. You will give us exclusive right to work on it. It's called an option for 18 months. So are you selling it? No, you're optioning it. However, that's how these things happen. They don't, almost never does a company simply buy something outright, especially certainly in the independent world. Michael said, I thought Go to 12. It's a script I wrote that I put out here. You can see the live stream and you can find the script on my website. Had a great chance to make it. When did you decide to move on? Did you push to find a producer? Of course I pushed. Well, at that time I gave it to my agent. My agent showed it to as many producers as we could. They told me that they didn't think that they could make it. And they didn't. That was a year or two. Okay. Mind. Uh-oh. I have watched all of your videos, but it's hard. Action is hard, I guess. I will try to apply whatever you have told again. Mind, I feel ya. I believe that is true. All I can say is there is nothing outside you that will give you that. What will allow you to write is writing. The only thing that will let you do it is doing it in such a micro way repeatedly until you get comfortable. Honestly, the main thing I would say is really, really just choose one project, do one step of the outline, write one scene idea, and then stop and do it again tomorrow. Over time, it starts to build up like a snowball. It starts to gather some weight and momentum, and you begin to believe in it and in yourself more. Practice and repetition, small steps. I cannot urge you enough to do small steps routinely. Make it a part of your life. That is my main message. Rich Girl Brand, I've binge watched most of your videos and I always take notes. Well, thank you. I'm still struggling. Everyone's saying this. I am so sorry. Do you have any videos showing how you go from concept to completed script? Actually, I do. It is not one video. It is 265 hours of live stream. I did something which is called the Screenwriting Step by Step. It's one of the playlists. It'll be there. If you look through my playlist and you scroll down a bit, there's something called Screenwriting Step by Step. What I did there was I said, I had a 2 or 3 sentence idea. That's all I had. And I went live 1 hour every day. That's all I worked on it. I didn't work on it after hours. For over a year, I believe, every afternoon I would turn on the camera and talk for 1 hour, let you see me working, share my screen. And I showed you how I built up the outline, how I developed the characters, how I planned the script, how I forced myself to write that horrible first draft, how I reread it and made notes and did rewrites. It's all there. So that would be my suggestion. If you really want that, I don't know that you should watch 265 hours, honest to God, but you can get the feel. You can skip around. Okay, no more questions because we're coming up to the end of the hour. I have an insane idea of writing a silent movie of a life of a deaf people completely without dialogue, but everyone thought I'm crazy. Well, you should do it. You know, if you like it, if you believe in it, it sounds good to me. I mean, Hundreds of Beavers, which is a silent comedy, it's not old, it's a new silent comedy called Hundreds of Beavers. It's on Amazon. It's hilarious. It is impossible. It's great. But also, that the idea of doing a movie entirely through a deaf character, it would be a challenge, but it would be a cool one. You should do it. You should try it. Okay. Why your lecture videos never mentioned any movies like other screenwriting teachers? I actually did a live stream about this. The answer is because everyone's doing it, and I honestly don't want you to spend your time looking at other people's stuff. It's great to do that after you have done your own. I want to be the person who says, no matter what, the main thing that you have to focus on is your own writing. And it is so easy. It is distracting to spend your time trying to learn from someone else, to analyze other pieces. It's a great business to go into, but it's not going to help you get anything written. It is wonderful to watch movies and break them down. I did a whole video of that called Take Art Apart. But I just believe that my main lesson to you is you have to write. You have to write. Go write something. You have to write, if possible, every day, a little bit. You have to say, at the end of the day, your choice is going to be your choice. That is, for me, was the hardest thing to learn. But it is what got me to where I can do this, to where I can write a script. Because I had to say, what I am doing is my choice within my possibilities. That whatever you are doing, no matter what anyone else has done, no matter how much you are taking from them, when it comes down to it, you are going to have to write your own words and make your own choices. And that, more than anything else, is what all of those great projects did. Every one of the people you're studying had to face the emptiness of writing by themselves, and I wanted to help you focus on that by not letting anything else come into it. It's all about you and your work, your way. So that's why. You are welcome, Rich Girl Brand. I am so sorry that I cannot hold your hand day by day and get you to just try. But all I can say is to you, to mine, to anyone else who is saying, I've watched all your videos, I still can't do it. The main thing you have to do is get used to the bad feeling of not knowing. Get used to putting something down, even if it seems absolutely terrible, and then doing it again. That's the key. Don't judge. Don't fear. Don't analyze. Just do something that you have fun with, a little tiny bit. The main thing is to do it over and over again. If you are here, you are probably already loving something. You are having something in your mind like, ooh, I want to do this. Imagine that as best you can. Do the best you can with it. It will not turn out like you think. It never does. One of the hardest things to get used to as a creative artist is that whatever it is that you think you're going to do, it's going to go through a process, and then you're going to discover what it really is. And what it really is will not be what you pictured, but it will be good. It will be something, it will have some qualities that you will say, cool, I can work with that. Once you stop thinking that there is some way to get your imagination out there without this process. The process is hellish until you get used to it, and then it is your drug of choice. You will never stop having fun if you get used to the process, not the project, the process. That's my big message. Okay, no more questions. I'd buy your book. Thank you. Yes, exactly. I am going to, if I do this, which I think I will, it will be as a ebook and a print-on-demand book through Amazon and other places. Your channel and Script Fella are the best on YouTube. Thank you. Sound lack sound effects. Oh well, I would like to have sound effects too. Why did you stop the daily live sessions? I finished the project, and truthfully, it's very demanding. I wanted to write my own book now. When I finished that script for the daily sessions, I said I have contributed. I've given a good show. But my goal with this channel is not to keep doing a show. My goal with this channel is to actually get you to stop watching the channel and go do your own work. Down the line, like I said, when I finish my novel, I may start another project, which I may again do daily sessions. I don't know, that would be years in the future. We will see. Thank you for asking, though. Clarity, read the clarity question. Back in the 80s, my friend and I would see art house films all the time. We walked out of Prospero's books confused and laughing. We agreed we were pretty sure there'd been a wedding. Yes. Yeah. There's all, if you go back to silent films, there have been some art films which were hard to follow. Yeah, there's always going to be this balance. There is no right or wrong between clarity and subtlety, between telling the audience what you think they need to know and letting them find or choose or discover for themselves. Those are the two parts of creative writing. And I believe there are certain things that are never chosen as you can do all of one or all of the other. Like form and content, you can't really separate them. Clarity and subtlety is a thing that you need to balance. You need to say, I need some clarity, I need some subtlety. I need to decide based on my instinct, my feeling, the things I have seen, the things I have liked, or the things I've hated. Do you have a favorite screenplay or movie? Not one. I have a couple hundred. The list is too long. I will see about including it at the back of my book. I want to make a film critic YouTube channel to rant about movies. Then you should do it. Do it. That's a great idea. Okay. I have watched all your videos, but when it comes to taking action, I fail. I feel mostly because I can't create good work yet, and I feel bad about it. Please, again, watch this one. Watch this one. This is where I talk about that. If you are saying, I want to do it, but I can't do it because I don't think it's good enough, because I don't think it's good enough is the problem. Nothing else will solve your problem until you say, I am just going to have to give up on being good enough. I'm just going to have to be what I am. And honestly, it will be as good as it's going to be. My guess is it'll have some good in there. But the main thing is, what you are telling me is, you can't take action because you are criticizing yourself, because you are afraid. And I give some real concrete solutions in this video. I beg you to look at it, because the main thing is focus on one step at a time. Make that, that scene, that character, that line, one line of dialogue. That's all you have to get done. That is the only answer. I have never felt anyone who has managed to solve that problem without coming to face the fact that you're stopping you. Your inner critic, your fear, whatever it is that you fear, start to think about it, because the truth is, whatever you fear, you're probably already suffering from it. You might as well have fun and write. If you fear that no one will like your work, well, nobody's going to like your work if you don't do it. So they already are not liking it. They are already not seeing it. Whatever it is that you think is bad is going to happen, it's not as bad as what you are doing to yourself. Any writer at all is going to be relentlessly criticized. You are going to be told you are bad. You are going to be told you fail. I cannot tell you the number of times I've been told I suck. And I know I don't. And other people sometimes say I don't. But the main thing is, whatever you fear, it is not as bad as what you are experiencing right now. Throw yourself out there. Suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Have it fail. Because then you'll find out that it's not that big a deal, because you're going to do more. Okay, no more questions. I have to go. Are your techniques useful for American screenplays or all screenplays? Nothing is useful for all screenplays. You have to decide which ones are useful for you and your world. You hired a director for every live stream. No, I haven't. It's just me and the camera. It's just me and this camera there. When I made my videos, it was just me and a camera. I would reach over and push the button and then step back, let it run for a bit, and then talk. And then when I was done, I would reach over and push the button and turn it off. It was just me. Okay, thank you. I am so glad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As writer-directors, is it beneficial to read books by the acting prophets? I believe that acting books are quite useful. The main one is a book by Judith Weston called Directing Actors. Here we go. Directing Actors by Judith Weston. That's the best one I have found for learning the methods by which scripts are used, and therefore you learn how to write better because you understand how they're being used. Directing Actors by Judith Weston, strongly recommended. First of all, great to see you. Thank you, Victoria. Do you ever get a little sick of a project after a while? Always. Absolutely. Yes, completely. The way I handle it is I often have two going. Like I'll have one that I'm writing and one that I'm planning. And sometimes when I just hate the one I'm writing, I will take a week off and I'll work on the other one. And honestly, I have not finished more because of this problem than I have completed. I have, for the 50 or so scripts that I have completed, there's probably 200 that I started, often did rough drafts, and then just couldn't get myself to go back to it. And I would urge you, that's one of my few regrets. I really regret not finishing things I got well into. So what I would say is take a break it down to small pieces. And if you're really, really hating it, step away for a bit, but come back. And it's better to finish it, even though you hate it, than to abandon it partway through. That's my experience. If I could tell my younger self something, it would be on the ones where I got, and look, there's somewhere I wrote most of a draft. Like I wrote like 70 pages of a draft. And then I just didn't rewrite it. I didn't finish it. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a bad mistake. How about narrative podcasts? Do you think making your own screenplay in a narrative podcast can help chances of selling the screenplay? I don't know about selling. Yeah, it can't hurt, because if you make a narrative podcast, at least the people judging narratives for work can say, oh, there's potential there. The problem with saying I'm going to do this and it is going to then get picked up and bought as a script is you'd have to, they're looking for somebody who has had great, like if you have 1 million followers or 1 million clicks on your narrative podcast, yeah, absolutely, they'll come running. The problem is, first of all, then you've used up your audience and they'll say, well, do we really want to do this when there's already an audience? But they usually do. The big issue is it's just as hard to get 1 million listeners to your podcast as it is to get 1 million people to pay a ticket for a movie. So, if the reason you're doing it is because you want to use that as a path to sell, not worth it. If the reason you're doing it is because it's a good way to get it done without the massive infusion of money and people that a production of film looks, a narrative podcast still requires some time and money and people, but not as much. So the answer is, yeah, I would strongly suggest it. I would just not suggest it only as a step towards the other goal. Make the thing itself good. Have it be fun. No more questions. I gotta go. Eleanor, hello. How do you balance life and writing? I have a hard time finding time to write between work. Yes, I am with you on that. I have too. What I would say the main way to balance it is do as much as you can, even if it's not much, because over time it builds up. also over time, you find ways to increase your productivity, even if all you have is an hour a day, 15 minutes a day. I was an office temp and worked in offices for 12 years after college before I started to make money as a writer. Very often I happen to be a morning person, and I would wake up early. I would wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and do an hour before I went to work. But if not, as I've said, I would carry my notebook, which now you can carry your phone or your iPad or your laptop. And whatever your job is, can you get a little 15-minute break and write then? Or just think things out and jot down notes. Whatever you can, cut out a little piece of time. If you do it over and over, it does accumulate, and it becomes, I wrote a whole novel while I was office temping. So yeah, but we're talking about over the course of a year, 2 years, but you can always find a little time and get comfortable with that. Say, you know what? Better than nothing. Better than nothing is the key to everything. Is there a page count that is more desirable today? Supposedly, 100, 90 to 110, somewhere in there. 120 is now considered long. I think that's crazy, but it's true. Anyway, that's what I've heard. Will directing a short film help in my journey as screenwriter? Yes. It's really hard work. It's a whole other art form. It takes a lot of work. Once again, I would urge you to read this book, Directing Actors, as far as being a director. But the main thing is, yes, if you can learn with the experience of production and what happens to a script when it gets produced, that will make you a better screenwriter. Absolutely. Okay. Hello, Hope. Hi, Drive-By Uppercut. Hope all is well. Thank you. Any thoughts on Robert Rodriguez's push to crowdfund and greenlight fan film pitches from his production company? Cool. I love Robert Rodriguez. I think he's a great spirit and a fun filmmaker, very talented and very freewheeling and trying different things. And I love that he's trying that. I don't really know much about it, but it sounds cool to me. Is A24 an exception, the definition of Hollywood companies? No. I mean, they chose their niche. They started as art film, and now they are mostly art horror films. But A24 is simply a small production company that is quietly building up its worth. I hope that they don't get too big-minded. I hope they recognize that it is better. I just heard that Red One, which is a it's a fun Amazon Christmas fantasy action movie, cost $250 million, which is more than all of the Best Picture nominees put together this year, I believe. It's better to do I believe it's better to do a $6 million movie than a $250 million movie. I fear that A24, it tends to happen that these indie companies start to build and build and build and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they lose that vision. So far, they're sticking to it, and I admire them, and I think they're great. How do you stay focused on one project and make choices when I have thousands of ideas in my head? I will tell you, the best way I know is to keep what I call scrap piles. This video tells you what I think about that. If you can write down the things that are in your head so you can put them aside and then come back to them, that is my main advice. What's your opinion on taking a public domain story from the 30s and 40s and giving it a fiction type story? I would say if you mean public domain as an actual public domain, which I think right now is the 20s, but I could be wrong. But if you mean public domain is that it's like a news story or a public story, I would say just be careful. Life rights and things like that, look into that. It's complicated stuff. But otherwise, what do I think about taking something that has that's available and giving it your own spin on it, your own contemporary, your own personal version? Yes, do that. It's a great idea. Okay. I gotta go. I can't answer all these. Okay. Um, so just so brief. No more questions. I gotta go. Why did they study Kurosawa when they were making Hollywood movies? Because of the mastery of the film medium. Kurosawa made gorgeous, powerful films that were in a very different style, and they took from them. And when you say, what does that have to do with Star Wars or Jaws? Well, very simply, the filmmaking, the language of visuals, of composition, of editing, of performance, they learned from that and they made their own. But Star Wars, one of the main thing that Kurosawa had, the swords. Star Wars has swords, lightsabers, but they're just Japanese swords. So the answer is that's what they took. That's what George Lucas took. You are welcome. You are welcome, Rich Girl Brand. I wish you and Mind and all the others who are stuck good luck. Just keep little tiny steps. That's the only thing I know. Patrick Dumuzangi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Learn to write for myself instead of seeking out a career in screenwriting. It's going great for me. Weirdly, it's not weirdly. It's right. That is what same thing. I was set to have a career in screenwriting, and then 18 years went by when nobody would pay me. No one would hire me, but I liked doing it, and I kept trying to do it and get better and find it more interesting for myself. And then people started to like my work more, and they paid me. Okay, gotta go. I am very sorry. I do not know what this means, King Eric. Okay. Wrong Space Soul, thank you for saying thank you. I am so glad. That is great. Thank you, Wrong Space Soul. Cool. Okay. Gotta go. I'm going to answer one more. How can I stay in the moment when writing from sentence to sentence in my work without skipping ahead and overwhelming myself with a larger structure? Practice. You know, if you're really having trouble with that, only write one sentence. Only write one moment. Like literally pull yourself back. Say, I'm just allowed to write one paragraph today. So therefore, all you can do is focus on that, get that one paragraph done, and then stop yourself. Do that for a month. Hopefully you will learn. Practice. It's all practice. Okay. Thank you, Dialogue Craft. I am very grateful to you. Watch the lessons and write. Yes. I believe you should, Lincoln. Should you make an outline? Yes. I have done 2 videos on that. The first one I have talked about, let's see, why outline. That is the first one. And the second one is how to outline. I beg you to look at those because I believe, you don't have to, but if you're struggling at all, outlines help. Okay, I got to go. It's late. It has been delightful to talk to you guys. I am fascinated by how many questions I get when I just leave it open. Whew. All right. All of you, thank you. Go write something. Go write a little bit, just a little bit, and then do it again the next day. Go write something.